As a principal trumpet player in a professional orchestra, one of the most important skills that I need to develop and to feel confident in is my upper register. It might surprise you to learn that throughout most of my career, I have felt like my upper register is a weakness of mine and it lagged behind other skills that I felt more comfortable with. I remember when I was an undergrad, my freshman year, I played the first movement of the sonata by Kent Kennan, and the end of this piece has a high C that's held out for a while. And in my practice sessions, this was pretty hit or miss. Sometimes I would get it and it would feel great. Then sometimes it was like this note was completely unachievable. Well, when it came time for the performance, I did my best, I played the whole thing, and then when I got to the end with the high C, I went for it and I got it. And I just remember it feeling like such a huge win for me to just get a high C on the top of the staff and be able to hold it in a performance. In the almost 20 years since that point, when I was a freshman playing the Kennan, to now, at this point in my career, I've spent a lot of time trying to understand how to develop a consistent and more reliable upper register, and I want to share some of those ideas with you in this video. You're going to want to stick around to the end. I'm going to share an exercise that's going to help you implement the things we talk about in this video so that you can also develop that same kind of confidence that I have. I would say the most common reason that I see people struggle with the upper register is they're just not using their corner muscles at all or not enough. If you are playing inefficiently on the trumpet and you are not using your corners to support the various levels of effort that you need, you're likely gonna fall into a trap that lots of players fall into, which is to jam the trumpet in their face to make things work. The problem with jamming the trumpet into your face is that it destroys the opportunity for the lips to vibrate freely, making it harder to move air and produce sound. And a lot of times it can cause damage to the tissue of the lips, which will cause swelling the next day or the day after, making it hard to play those days as well. There are many ways to address this particular issue, but one of my favorite ways to help people develop corner strength is to use the pencil exercise. A lot of people I've come across use the pencil exercise to actually develop strength. And I have used it that way in the past, but I don't use it that way anymore. Instead, I use this exercise simply to drive awareness of what it feels like when your corners are firm and engaged and supportive. You want to use a pencil like this for this exercise. You don't want to use like a mechanical pencil or anything. You want it to be completely straight from this part of it because that's where your mouth will be. What you're going to do is you're going to take the eraser of the pencil and put it up against your teeth, and then you're going to form an embouchure around the pencil and you're going to try to hold it as parallel to the ground as you can. If you do this correctly, you should feel the corners of your mouth engage and become firm within a couple of seconds, and you should actually be able to focus on it. Like take your brain and focus on that feeling of what it feels like when your corners are working. When you feel that feeling, I would stop doing the pencil exercise. You don't need to go further than that, but you want to try to remember what that feeling is like so that when you play the trumpet for real, you can try to bring those feelings of firm corners to your trumpet playing. You can use things like scales, long tones, maybe Chikowitz flow studies to work your way into the upper register while also trying to connect sort of a mind-muscle connection between your brain and your corners. If you are able to get your corners to be firm and supportive, you should notice that it will alleviate some of the pressure on your face where you don't have to push so hard. It should allow for more free air to happen, and it should just make the trumpet easier altogether. Using the pencil exercise and bringing that knowledge over to things like long tones and scales is a very good first step towards developing the awareness you need. But ultimately, over time, you want to be able to make this habitual so you don't have to think about your corners. You can think about the sound that you want to create, and the corners are nice and supportive so you can play any note you want and be successful. Another component of playing in the upper register that is very important to understand is what syllables that you might be using to play and the effect those syllables will have on the ease of playing in the upper register. Various syllables that you can use will affect the shape of your mouth, so you can have a very open syllable like ta or to, and you can have a very closed syllable like ti or ti. And simply put, if you're trying to get into the upper register with a very open ta ta mouth shape.
You're gonna have a bad time.
One system that I think talks about syllables in a way that's helpful and gives you an opportunity to experiment and explore how to use syllables is the Maggio system for brass. You can see here on the screen that he recommends for third space C and below to use a ta syllable. And then for C sharp, D, and E flat, he recommends a te syllable. And then for E up to B flat on the top of the staff, he recommends a T syllable. And then for B and above, it looks like a tich syllable. So if you say those syllables to yourself, ta, te, ti, tich, you can feel your mouth shape changing. Your tongue position will change a little bit. And generally what happens is your tongue position becomes a little bit higher, and it's gonna make the air a little bit more compact and faster so that you can get into the upper register with more ease. I personally haven't spent any time in my career thinking about syllables when playing the trumpet, and especially in the upper register. But as I was reading through the Maggio system and kind of messing around a little bit, I noticed that I am pretty much doing what he recommends to do. I'm just not thinking about it that way. So if you're struggling with the upper register, I think it's absolutely worthwhile to experiment a little bit with different syllables. How does it affect the ease of it? One other thing that's worth mentioning really quickly is my good friend and section mate in Alabama, Nick Ciula, and I were talking about this, and he shared an experience he has with students where when you start talking about syllables, sometimes what can happen is the corners can also be affected. If you say te, ti, and it can kind of go out like this, you want to make sure that the first thing we talked about, that the corners are firm and supportive, that remains true, and then you're thinking about the syllables from that point. So really, it's just affecting the inside shape of your mouth. It's not affecting your corners. Those need to stay nice and firm always. What I'd like to do now is share an exercise that's gonna help you be able to become aware of your corners, help develop corner strength, and it's gonna give you a chance to mess around and explore some of this syllable stuff that we've been talking about. I've actually shared this exercise in a video a couple of years ago, but I think I understand it a little bit better than I did then. I've seen it work a lot more, so I want to share it again and explain it the way I would talk about it now. The main purpose of this exercise is not to think about trying to drive up your maximal range, the top highest note you can play right away, but rather to teach players how to approach the upper register on the trumpet in a healthy way. To set up this exercise, you want to take whatever your highest usable note is and then go down a perfect fourth, and that's where you're going to start. So if your highest note is a D above high C, then the exercise you will do in this video will start on an A below that, an A on the top of the staff. This exercise is pretty simple. It consists of 3 major scales. A, the scale that we're gonna start on, B flat, and then B major. Each scale is gonna take 10 seconds to complete, and then you will rest for 20 seconds in between each scale. To start this exercise, you wanna grab a stopwatch of some sort, and you're gonna hit start. I usually wait 10 seconds to begin the exercise so I have a chance to get ready and play. When the 10 seconds happens, then what I do is I begin playing the scale. You want to play the first note of the scale with the most beautiful sound you can, and then ascend at whatever pace you have to keep that beautiful sound until you get to the top. The reason for this is when you get to the top, you're in this beautiful sound and you're learning how to play in the upper register with that beautiful sound instead of a sound that's pressed or sharp or something like that. When you get to the top, you're gonna hold the top note for the remainder of the 10 seconds. So if it takes you 4 seconds to get from the beginning of the scale to the top note, then you're gonna hold the top note for 6 seconds for 10 seconds total. When you finish that, you rest for 20 seconds. We're gonna rest twice as much as we play in this exercise. And after your 20 seconds rest, you will move on to B flat, do the same exact thing, start the scale, play it until you get to the top, hold the top note till the 10 seconds is up, and then you rest for another 20 seconds, and then you repeat this again on B major, and then rest for 20 seconds. These 3 scales in succession like this is what I consider to be one set, and in your first time through this exercise, you want to do 3 sets total. So that's going to be A major, B flat major, B major, A, B flat B, A, B flat B. This will take you 4.5 minutes to complete the whole thing. If you complete the 3 sets and it feels comfortable, you can move on next time you play it to 4 total sets. And then if you complete that and it's comfortable, you would move on to 5 total sets. If you complete that and it's comfortable, move on to 6 total sets. When you complete 6 total sets and it feels comfortable, you drop back down to 3 sets and move all of the scales up a half step. So what's happening here is we're gonna build some work capacity and some familiarity with these initial 3 scales. And when we've built up some of that strength and whatnot, then we're going to drop it back down, move the scales up a little bit higher, and then build work capacity there. I recommend doing this exercise every other day to give your chops a break and you don't just redline immediately. Overall, this exercise is going to help you develop a more reliable upper register by first getting you into the upper register more often, a little bit of exposure therapy, and then also to help you develop some good habits or some proper form in terms of firm corners, proper syllable usage, and proper airflow. Here's what a sample progression would look like over the course of a month. As you can see, you're adding a whole step every 3 weeks or so. So if you're able to stay consistent, you're gonna see some big gains over time. This exercise is gonna turn this stressful skill of trying to get as much range as you can, as fast as you can, but things are not working and it feels terrible, into this regular occurrence where you get into the upper register, things feel good, you develop that confidence, and over the long run is where you're gonna see some of those gains you're looking for to break into ranges that are higher and more difficult. Understanding what we're talking about in this video is important because it's not only gonna help you play in the upper register on your big horns, but also on the piccolo trumpet. If you wanna see my thoughts on piccolo trumpet, how to be successful, and even what I do to warm up on the piccolo, click the video on the screen. We'll see you in the next video.